Welcome in. Happy Tuesday night. We're only, 48 hours away from that first round of the NFL draft. And the 49ers currently don't have any picks in that first round. They won't go until Friday at number 61 if the status quo holds. But we're still here to talk about the draft and the 49ers' 9 picks in it. I promised I'd do a dedicated show. I know there have been a lot of shows. I've talked about a lot of prospects, but I kind of wanted to wrap everything up here in one neat piece before we really get into the final stretch. Obviously, we might have a few minutes of a lull from Deebo Samuel stuff. And hey, somebody will text me, I'm sure. I'll be able to check Twitter during the show in case something happens. But as it stands right now, Deebo Samuel is a 49er, and the 49ers have 9 draft picks starting at number 61. So I've identified 5 positions of need, and I'm going to talk about some players as we go through each position of need. I'm not going to play videos during this show. If you want to type in the YouTube highlights of any player that I put on the screen and simultaneously watch them, feel free to do that. Go ahead. All power to you. I know during some of these shows I play highlights. This one, I just wanted to focus on connecting with the audience, answering some questions. So be sure to pour through some questions. Let's try to keep it away from Deebo Samuel unless he actually gets traded during this show. Let's talk about some of these prospects. And most importantly, let's talk about the 49ers' needs, because the draft is the biggest crapshoot that there is. So it's really hard, I think, before the draft to talk about specific guys. Of course, we're going to talk about a few guys right here, and we're going to zero in on some of their skill sets. But I like to extrapolate this into larger picture truths about what the 49ers might want at each position. Because if you're zeroing in on specific guys before the 49ers even pick, I mean, there are hundreds of potential prospects. The 49ers only have 9 picks, and even the team doesn't know what's going to be the case at number 61 or at one of its later picks. It's a fluid event. One domino can trigger an effect amongst hundreds of different dominoes, and that's why you have to be on your game come draft night, come the multiple days of the draft, because stuff is going to change, and only fluidity is going to be able to allow a team to adapt and react to different circumstances. So I want to view everything through that lens as we go through different positions. All right, so first position, edge rusher. Why edge rusher? Well, because the 49ers like to pick edge rushers every single season, and I think this year there actually is a situation where the team does have a spot opposite Nick Bosa, because Dee Ford is almost certainly not going to return. He's probably done for his career. And as we know, the 49ers, as they're currently constructed, want a premier speed rushing edge piece opposite Nick Bosa. They're in the wide 9. Chris Kasarik brought that scheme in. The 49ers really elongate the front, and they want to beat offensive tackles with speed. If you could beat them with speed off of the edges, well, then you could have some either prodigiously strong or extremely athletic defensive tackles do some work on islands in the middle. The line worked in cohesion. It is a complementary pass rush, and it really was unlocked, well, as we saw in 2019, when you had a stud in Nick Bosa, complemented by a stud in Dee Ford. So 2 guys that I really like. Boye Mafe out of Minnesota. And this season, I mean, he's a testing king. This guy, 4.5 40, 1.5 10-yard split, explosive as hell, 95th percentile across the board when it comes to the broad jump, when it comes to that explosion in the 10-yard. I mean, he's a premier athlete. And I think a guy like Boye Mafe would fit the 49ers speed rushing role well. The problem is that he tested so well that his draft grade might have improved all the way to the first round. I mean, initially people would talk about Boye Mafe as potentially a 3rd rounder. And then after this whole testing circuit, I think, I mean, he had 15 sacks in college. So no joke for Boye Mafe. The guy can get after the quarterback. It is very, very pure athleticism, but I do think he has some tools as well to rush the passer. And obviously the 49ers believe that whoever Chris Kasarik can get his hands on can utilize those tools. Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. He's not as fast, not as pure of an athlete as Boye Mafe, but on tape, the guy's an explosive edge rusher. And he comes from a more premier program, obviously, in Penn State versus the Golden Gophers from Minnesota. And I think that Ebiketie can get after the quarterback as well. So you look at these 2 edge rushers. Again, I don't like to zero in on specific players, but I do like to look at stuff holistically. And if the 49ers do decide to continue adding to the defensive line over the first couple of rounds of the draft, this is the type of body that they think they're going to go after, because you got a big defensive end and Nick Bosa on one end. You've re-signed Kerry Hyder to a one-year deal. Kerry Hyder can also do some run stopping for you. You can play inside or outside. You obviously have Charles Omenihu, who's a prospect they really like working with, the trade from the Texans this past year. And you have Samson Ebukam. And Ebukam is an athletic freak. Ebukam was a tester, right? He had the 40, he had the 10-yard burst, he had the broad jump. He wasn't as refined technically coming out of Eastern Washington, and he probably wasn't as refined for the position, that edge rushing position that the 49ers want him to play when he came over last year as a free agent. But there's a reason why Ebukam exploded in weeks 14 onward, and it's because Chris Kocurek had a chance to work with him. So you look at Boye Mafe, you look at Arnold Ebiketie, and both of these guys, I think, if you take this mold of athlete, and there are not many of them, but so you have to probably use a higher level pick to get this type of edge rusher. I think that's going to pair with Nick Bosa, and it's going to pair really well with what Chris Kocurek can do. It's a loaded defensive line room for the 49ers, but history shows us that they do not mind adding to it. All right, our second position of need, safety. Jaquiski Tartt no longer on the roster. Jimmy Ward still on the roster, but that second safety position, I'm not really sure what the 49ers want to do there, and I don't think that they feel that it's particularly solidified right now. Now, DeMeco Ryans likes to run a lot of three safety looks. He did last year, and I think that's where Talanoa Hufanga comes in. I'm not sure if I fully trust Talanoa Hufanga, who is not a great athlete, in pure coverage at that second safety position. And I'm sorry, in the modern NFL, both safeties are going to have to be good in pure coverage. Now, I do like Talanoa Hufanga as a player. The 49ers obviously got him down there in the 5th round, so they felt that they unearthed some value, and he made some plays for him last year. Great special teams guy, and also somebody who's all over the box, who's able to toss his body around, and he's instinctual, right? So he's able to make some big stops, both on short passes and in the running game. And I think if you're running some three safety sets, Talanoa Hufanga fits in really well there. George Odom, the new pickup for the 49ers in free agency, didn't miss a single tackle in the box last year. So he's also a good safety when it comes to run support, when it comes to close quarters. But the book on him, I don't think is big enough as far as coverage goes. So safety remains a position of need for me when I study the 49ers draft. And I have two names right here. From Baylor, Jalen Pitre. Both of these guys, by the way, Nick Cross from Maryland and Jalen Pitre from Baylor, both of these guys are ball hawks. 5 interceptions for Pitre in college, 6 for Cross in college. And especially, I'm not going to limit it to one of them. Both of these guys jump routes. I think in the case of Pitre, you're looking at somebody who could be a big slot, a big nickel. And the 49ers, obviously, they're missing Jaquiski Tartt, but K'Waun Williams is also gone. K'Waun Williams has also signed elsewhere. So that all adds up to the 49ers need more valuable, versatile pieces in their defensive backfield. And maybe they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And you talk about the third safety or the slot corner, the nickel back. Well, normally if you're running 3 safeties, that nickel back, you're running the big slot in that case. The nickel is an amorphous position. The nickel could be a small, shifty guy meant to cover small, shifty slot receivers, or you could bring in that bigger, big nickel body, and that could be a little flex against the run. So a little bit of an enhancement in run support, and maybe somebody who could even work against some tight ends. And I think that Jalen Pitre is a player, former linebacker at lower levels of football, somebody who converted to that safety position, who can play that hybrid role, who can stop the run, and the 49ers need a ball hawk. This secondary hasn't notched enough interceptions in recent years. The best season for it was in 2019. Jason Verrett did some work in 2020, but the safeties, especially for the 49ers, aren't multiple INT guys. And when I look at the skill sets of both Pitre and Nick Cross, I see 2 players who can absolutely prey on the football, who could come in from that second level and allow the 49ers to maybe generate some turnovers that don't start with the pass rush on the back end. All right, third position of need, running back. And I know that a lot of people are going to pull their hair out when they hear this and when they see some of these names, because Kenneth Walker III and Breece Hall, Those two guys are both predicted to go early in the draft, maybe first, but probably second round. And the 49ers, obviously have used draft capital in the not too recent past, fairly high up in the draft. And people are like, don't do that. You can find Elijah Mitchell in the 6th. But, just for due diligence, I know you guys love that word, or those two words. Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, I have to put them on the list because these are two studly running backs. Breece Hall is Roger Craig's cousin, by the way, former 49ers great. 1,000 guys. So Iowa State product, Breece Hall. He's on the thumbnail for this video, which Mike did such a good job of making. It's Breece Hall on the very left out of Iowa State. That's Jalen Petrie, by the way, right there in the middle. And then you have Arnold Ebiketie on the right. So 3 of the players that we've talked about are on the thumbnail. We'll go back to full screen mode here. Mike does a great job with those thumbnails. He deserves a shout out. So everybody say thank you to Mike. Anyway, I'm talking about the running backs. Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, both, good size. They're not 220 plus bell cows, but they're over 200. They both can move. They're both striders. They both can feel, the soft spot of the defense. They can both hit the hole. They're studs. They're the 2 best backs in this class, in my opinion. If the 49ers end up wanting to go for more of the 225-pound bell cow, which who knows? I mean, this offense has been evolving. Maybe with Trey Lance at quarterback, you're going to run some more inside zone. You're going to want some more muscle to, kind of trample over defenses. We saw Trey Sermon last year. He's bigger than the typical 49ers back. Well, then you could go to Brian Robinson from Alabama, 225-pounder, but he certainly isn't as fast as some of these other guys. He's more of a 4.5 40 type guy. If you're going for the speed and you want to find it slightly later in the draft, well, you have options. And the 49ers, John Lynch talked about the need for speed during his pre-draft press conference on Monday. So talk about Pierre Strong out of South Dakota State. With Trey Lance being from North Dakota State, maybe it's only right that the 49ers represent South Dakota as well. But Pierre Strong can fly. Smaller back, South Dakota State, 4.3 speed. He can fly. Look up his highlights right now. And Ty Chandler, North Carolina, he can also move. He's also a 4.3 guy, maybe a 4.38, somewhere around there, 4.4. But he can move too. And definitely with Ty Chandler, you're going to be able to get him a little bit lower in this draft. Either way, position of need, because you've seen it every year. 49ers see injuries. Last season, so many of them that they had to put Deebo Samuel in at running back, and he was one of the best in the league. But right now you see that that's an issue in contract negotiations. Everybody's talking about that. So the bottom line is the 49ers need more depth at the running back position. Even if Deebo is back, even if Elijah Mitchell stays healthy, you want to come in waves at that position. And those are some names that I like. All right, next group, receiver. This is a big one. Obviously, Deebo's in the news right now. But wide receiver for the 49ers, with or without Deebo Samuel, I think could use at least one more quality body. And I have some ideas. And I've made separate videos on the receiver room. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We're about to hit 13K. I said that during the video this morning, and we got almost halfway there. So a few more subs, and we're right up at 13K. But if you do subscribe, you can go back and you could watch the videos about potential draft targets at receiver. I've gone through a lot of these positions on the YouTube channel, but we can go through the receivers really briefly right now. You have Treylon Burks, Arkansas, built like a linebacker, 6'2", 225. Plays a little bit like Deebo Samuel. He's not afraid of contact. The 49ers want size in that receiver room. They want somebody who can A, block, and B, assert his physicality. The Dante Pettis experiment's done. It failed for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan is looking to punish people physically with his receiver position, and he's not looking for anything less. I would be surprised if the 49ers went for a guy that's more nimble than strong in this situation. And, hey, even if they have Deebo Samuel, I think you want to build on that. You saw the nasty that they got from Jawan Jennings. You've seen Brandon Ayuk get stronger over his 2 seasons in the NFL. Well, Treylon Burks, 225 pounds, good, big hands. There's a lot to like. Not the most polished route runner, but, I mean, he's the most Deebo-esque player, I think, that pops off the screen early on amongst these top draft prospects in 2022. Sky Moore, different type of player, but some similarities. 5'9", Western Michigan product. Sky Moore has the biggest hands in NFL draft out of all the wide receivers, even though he's 5'9". 10 1/4 inch hands. Just think about that. 10 1/4 inches. these hands right here are not 10 1/4 inches. So Sky Moore, I mean, he is a ball vacuum. He'll get up there and he'll catch everything that comes his way. Great hands, big hands, good route runner. Is able to, develop separation. And the thing I like most about Sky Moore is that even though he's 5'9", he's tough. He's not, your dainty 5'9" slot receiver who's not going to be able to absorb much contact. He lined up on the outside for Western Michigan. He won one-on-one situations. He's a player that I think the 49ers would be extremely interested in if he's available. And that might be the case in the second or even the third round because the height, there's a lack of it at 5'9". Drake London, he's a stud from USC. With London, you got a 6'3", 6'4" wide out. Not as, physical or tough as a guy like Treylon Burks, but the ball skills for Drake London while that ball's in the air are superb, maybe the best in college football. The adjustments he can make, the hand skills to grab some of those contested grabs are on display a lot in his tape. And if the 49ers are going to be playing some more outside the numbers ball, if they're going to be relying on Trey Lance to go downfield and put it up, challenge single coverage, Drake London would be a guy that would like to have. However, first rounder, I think, but almost by consensus or almost unanimous in that case for Drake London. So, that's probably a player the 49ers are only able to get if they do trade Deebo Samuel and they do have first-round draft capital in return. Then we have Danny Gray and Alec Pierce. And I put Alex Pierce there, but it's going to be Alec Pierce. Hold on. Why don't we go and edit this really fast? Because I don't like having misspellings up on the screen. We'll save it. There we go. Much better. In the case of Danny Gray, 5'11". He's a speedster, but he runs that 4.3 40. That's all you need to know. We talk about the speed that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have said that they wanted to add to the 49ers. I think with a guy like Danny Gray, you have it. And with Alec Pierce, you might have some speed too. Thing about Pierce, though, the guy's big, 6'3", but he's posted between a 4.4 and a 4.5. So those are two receiving prospects that you absolutely look at. Finally, I've talked about this position of need in an entirely separate video. Center. Alex Mack probably retiring. If we're reading the tea leaves, seems like he's retiring. If the 49ers don't sign a veteran, or even if they do, J.C. Treader, or even if they start Daniel Brunskill, I think you got to draft a center. And especially, you want to think about guard center versatility because guard's been a weakness for this football team in past years. So maybe you draft somebody that can start behind a veteran. But as his career progresses, he could be learning the ropes at guard, and he could bolster the 49ers along the interior offensive line. That's why I really like Luke Fortner, who's the last name listed there out of Kentucky. He's got true guard center versatility, and I think he's somebody the 49ers can pick up around the third round. I also like Cole Strange out of Chattanooga. I don't know if Strange and Cole Jurgens, who's Cam Jurgens, who's out of Nebraska. I don't know if they have the best guard center versatility, but they're both twitchy athletes with positional versatility in their backgrounds that can master that center position from a cerebral standpoint, in my opinion, because of their backgrounds, because of what they've shown on film in college. Strange out of Chattanooga, Jurgens out of Nebraska. Now, the player here that the 49ers have actually hosted is Donald Parham. And Parham is, when you look at the skill sets of all these centers, Parham has some burst, but I think he's got a little bit more strength than some of these other guys. And we talk about the typical 49ers offensive lineman. And the typical 49ers offensive linemen, just are stereotype, let's put it this way, can run block, but he struggles to anchor in pass protection. And if the 49ers want to get better at pass protection, they need to start picking guys who can anchor better right out of the gate. So they don't have to develop that man strength, develop something they don't have at the college level in the NFL. So I think with Parham, you may have that. I think that's something that you could definitely work on and see tangible results. And I think there's a reason why they hosted him. Of course, Tyler Linderbaum is the top center prospect in that whole mix for the 49ers. But the Iowa alumni, Iowa alumnus, it's not talking plural, it's talking singular. The Iowa alumnus probably will go in the first round, so that will require the 49ers to go after Deebo Samuel. So those are my 5 positions of need: center, edge rusher, safety, running back, receiver. And those are some of the prospects the 49ers can get. I don't want you to zero in on too many names because there's hundreds of names, but those are names that we can take skill sets from and apply them to other potential players. It's going to be a lot of fun on this channel, on The Athletic, everywhere where I produce content after the 49ers actually pick. Because the first thing I do is I call up their past coaches, I call up their parents, I call up their friends, and I write these feature stories. I have these profiles. We figure out what these players are good at, what their weaknesses are, what their mental makeup is, and we can actually start drawing the picture of what the 49ers are doing, how they're building this football team from the ground up with some of these rookies. Remember, they currently have 9 picks, and this is going to be an important draft. John Lynch thinks that it's medium to bottom heavy, that it's not top heavy, and some of the reports in the National Reporters seem to corroborate that. I think it was Rappaport the other day that said there's way more interest in trading back than there's trading up. So we had a top-heavy draft in 2021. We have more of a middle-to-bottom-heavy draft in 2022, and the 49ers are more than happy about that since they have 9 picks starting at number 61. They don't have number 3 overall this season. All right, I'll take a couple of questions, then I'm going to go rest. Brandon Hale, I think Luke Fortner would be the best option for that position because of the 49ers' desire for, I think, a guard as well. I think they want versatile offensive linemen. So they should definitely go for a guy who has a demonstrated track record at guard and center. I think, and hey, Fortner's not the only one in that mix who could potentially do it, but Fortner, to me, has demonstrated that. So be on the lookout, no matter who the 49ers pick along the offensive line. When I asked John Lynch about it yesterday, he seemed to indicate that they would use at least one of those 9 picks on an offensive lineman. So let's, as we make projections, as we start to study who the 49ers actually pick, let's talk about that adaptability, positional adaptability up front. There's Mike. Would you say the 49ers should be aggressive in the draft? Well, I don't know if you mean aggressiveness as far as trading up, or aggressiveness as far define aggressiveness. I'm going to get back to this question. I'm sure Mike will have that very well articulated. Chris, I hope we get Linderbaum as a lifetime center. Not versatility because, Linderbaum seems like a pure center, but I feel like center is more important to Kyle than guard, where he makes replacement level guys decent. Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle has shown that center is more important to him than guard based on who he's paid and who he's signed. But I think Kyle is overestimating his ability to make guards good. I mean, yes, Laken Tomlinson, great story. He made money over his time with the 49ers, $13 million a year with the Jets. Congratulations to him. But the 49ers have suffered some devastating losses because their right guard play has not been up to par in these big games against these 3 techniques at the NFL level. I mean, Chris Jones did a number on him in the Super Bowl. I mean, I could go down the list. Obviously, Aaron Donald did a number on the 49ers. So I think if you're the 49ers, you need to start thinking about investing more in guard, which they did last year when they drafted Aaron Banks. But the problem is that Tomlinson walked. Banks was a second rounder. He is the front runner to start on the left side. So now you look at the right side. What do? Jalen Moore, Daniel Brunskill, or do you need Brunskill to start at center? It's tough. If I'm the 49ers, I'd rather have Brunskill as a roving backup as your 6th offensive lineman. So then you're putting a lot of chips in the Jalen Moore bucket. That means that this draft is really important, I think, to hit on the interior O-line. So you take out center and you take out the guard needs, right? And you're not going to fully take them out, but at least you could start chipping away at them. So here's Mike. He followed up. Would you say the 49ers should be aggressive in the draft by trading up in rounds 2 to 4? Yes, I think they should be aggressive within the framework of rounds 2 to 4. I don't think that they should be aggressive necessarily to trade up to get into the first round, because I think this is a middle-heavy draft. And I think the 49ers also have too many picks to really make good use of on this roster. But you can make good use of them by trading in the middle rounds of the draft to get some prospects you might really like to leapfrog some other teams. So I would expect some maneuvering, but if they just use all 9 picks for 9 players, well, I don't think there are 9 open roster spots realistically on the 53-man for the 49ers. I think that Rookies will compete for maybe 5, maybe 6 of them. So trading up, maneuvering to get the players that you really want that really fit could make sense for the 49ers. All right, any more questions? Let's get a couple more. We're increasing viewership here as time goes along. So those of you who just joined, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I just saw this. His name is Alec Pierce. Yes, that was just a typo on my part when I was rushing to start this show on time. It's Alec Pierce, 6'3", 4'4", speed wide receiver, a guy that the 49ers might want to grab. Mike says that Sky Moore is his favorite wide receiver, and I agree. 49ers Breakdown. Go follow 49ers Breakdown. He only has 3 subs. Shout out to 49ers Breakdown. Type it on YouTube. I've never watched 49ers Breakdown, but he watches me, so I'm going to support 49ers Breakdown, and I'm going to go watch him after this. So 49ers Breakdown on YouTube, has only 3 subs. That's a problem. Go and check him out. Pierre Strong is very good. I agree. I've watched a lot of Pierre Strong. I like these small school guys. And I think the 49ers like small school guys too. There's a lot of, it's funny because Jimmy Garoppolo is an FCS guy, small school guy, and so is Trey Lance. But it's not just the quarterback position. The 49ers like to go after small school guys. And I think it's something about attitude. It's something about that blue-collar mentality. It's something about how that meshes with the locker room that the 49ers really, really enjoy. So, I like the fact that Pierre Strong went to South Dakota State. And again, you need to represent South Dakota. You already have North Dakota State represented. Why not South Dakota as well? Yeah, well, then you have Cook's younger brother, running back. I didn't forget anybody, okay? Let's put it this way. Again, this is why I said don't focus and zero in on names, because there are hundreds of names, and it would take too much space and too much time for me to list every single name. I just wanted to give some template players. 49ers may or may not draft them, but I'm trying to open the discussion. I think you need to view the draft with flexibility. The team has to view the draft with flexibility. You can't come in zeroed in on one name, especially when you're not picking until number 61. All right. More stuff. Let's see. Where are you guys at? More questions. This is a good one. How much weight do you think Lynch and company put on the eye test and scouting versus models and analytics in the draft? Well, I think scouting and the eye test definitely lead the way. That's the locomotive that pulls the train. But then you have the R&D department, research and development, and the analytics, and that obviously comprises the models. And those two work hand in hand with each other. Sometimes the models will give you an idea of, okay, maybe we should look at this player because he scores really well in all our models. And sometimes you need confirmation of some of your theories regarding other players that you've scouted. So you say, okay, well, Elijah Mitchell is a great example. 49ers liked his tape, and they looked at their R&D models last year, blew everybody away. And they're like, oh, okay, we got to pick this guy. When he was still available in the 6th round, even though the 49ers weren't planning to go running back, they saw Bobby Turner's appraisal. He liked Elijah Mitchell. Another blue-collar guy from a small school, by the way, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns in the bayou over there. Erath, Louisiana's Elijah Mitchell's hometown. It's a farm town there. He's the kind of guy came with boots and a belt buckle on to school. It's the football field there at Louisiana. And when the 49ers liked him as a person, when they liked the tape, then they also liked the fact that all of their analytics models said this guy was a perfect outside zone runner. I'm going to have more on that after the draft. Stay tuned. That's a great question. Thank you. FCS fan, James Madison. They should have taken Jimmy Moreland. Speaking of FCS, any chance Christian Watson drops to the Niners? There's a chance for everything in the draft, but then they'd be really loading up hard on North Dakota State. South Dakota would feel left out. So if you ask me, Pierre Strong. I'm more into that Pierre Strong train right now. This seems like the type of draft where you'll see a lot of movement. I would not be totally shocked if someone to come in with an offer for Jimmy Garoppolo, depending on how the first round falls. Yes, I wouldn't be shocked with anything. One thing about Garoppolo is that I think it's likeliest that he moves once there's a quarterback need somewhere, and those can arise as time goes along. All right, any more questions? I'm getting tired. Any chance they trade back for future picks next year? That's interesting to me because the draft is better in 2023. I think it's more loaded with top heavy talent. I think, it's funny. Somebody told me today, I wonder if the 49ers, as they're fielding different offers for Deebo Samuel and they need to be blown away by their King's ransom, I wonder if they would rather have first round picks, or at least one, in 2023. And my response was, well, the 49ers, what's unacceptable to them is getting worse right now. And I think if you lose Deebo Samuel and your first round picks aren't coming until 2023, you get worse, right, in the short term. And that's not good with Trey Lance presumptively being the starter this year. So you want your first round picks, you want the premium capital to come in this year. But the catch-22 is that the draft, especially in the top echelons of it, is not as good as it will be next year. It's not as good as it was last year. So, yes, I think there is a chance that the 49ers execute a couple trades in this draft. Usually you trade up, but there could be packages that give them a pick next year, right? I wouldn't rule anything out. It is strange because the level of talent, the way that evaluators look at the draft class as a whole, has been markedly different from season to season. It was because of COVID, because a lot of guys decided to stay in school last year, but premier guys left. So the guys who stayed in school, those are going to be your middle tier guys. They've beefed up the middle of this draft, but the premier guys all left early. So the premier guys are all off the board. You don't have many premier guys. And because of that, the vacuum of premier guys is going to be filled in 2023. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Everybody subscribe to the channel. It is evening. I'm a little bit jet lagged. It's 8 o'clock. It's getting dark outside. I think I'm going to go watch Ozark, get caught up on that before the second half of the next season comes out. I've already had my burrito tonight. That was really good. 2 straight nights of burritos. Living it right in California. Tomorrow is Wednesday. The draft is Thursday. So let's get to 13K. Everybody subscribe to the channel. Prepare your questions for shows coming up in the future. I appreciate all of you. It's been nice talking. The 49ers draft needs and potential targets. Everybody take care. We'll be back tomorrow with some more good content on the channel and at The Athletic. So everybody have a good night.